Hey guys. Okay, so I'm just going to tap dance for a couple seconds so the people that get their ad at the beginning, they can go ahead and catch this from the beginning. Um, Today, you see in the title, we're just going to be tangent surfing. We don't have a set topic. We're just going to be jumping around. I've got some ideas, some notes to ask Dan. Objectively, Dan, for those of you, from one or two viewers that have never seen his show, um, Dan, where can people find you, and what kind of upcoming projects? What kind of irons do you have in the fire?
Yeah, so right now, I am the creator and current co-host and well, main host, I should say. We have some other hosts now. It used to just be me. Now we've got some other hosts on Truth Wanted, which is a production of the Atheist Community of Austin. And in the past few months, I've also become a co-host of another production, which is Talk Heathen. So if you're not familiar with those shows, they're both call-in shows. My show, Truth Wanted, focuses more on the wacky and weird stuff out there. Talk Heathen is a show about community, specifically secular community, and all the things that come with that. So definitely check those out. I don't have much other projects going on right now, but I am going to be going to Faithless Forum later this year in November, so I'm looking forward to that. Oh, can't hear you. Muted.
Damn it. Talk Heathen. Yeah, I never see you on. Well, I don't really watch Talk Heathen that much. I probably should check that out. I've seen Truth Wanted. To be full disclosure, the first time I ever saw Truth Wanted was when my co-host Courtney came down to Austin and was your guest
Right.
host.
Right.
So,
Back in the before pandemic times when we were able to actually do it in studio, now we have to do everything remote. So
the before time. So you haven't done in person since the pandemic?
Not since the pandemic. It's been over a year since. Well, not since I stepped in the studio. I've had to go inside to pick up some equipment here and there. But since we've recorded, it hasn't been since like March of last year. I think maybe April or so. Sorry, 2020, right? Yeah.
I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Okay,
I can't remember how long it's been now, right? It's
crazy.
Like about a year and a half. It's been,
March, April sounds about right, because our last once a month there was 4 hosts of Atheist Edge back then. So we would once a month meet at someone's house and set up a recording studio and just record for 12 hours. We'd invite people in at certain time frames, and it was all in person, and we'd have enough that day of recording to edit and have for the entire month. And it was a big, I loved it. It was such a great time, being around.
Yeah.
And I remember it was about March or April, our very last one before it hit. And we knew that the coronavirus existed, but it hadn't hit our shores yet. And we weren't taking it seriously. And we brought a case of Corona beer and we were drinking it during the show. We had no idea how bad it would get.
Yeah, it feels like we're really living in a different world. So I hope we can go back to the studio soon. Maybe this time next year is a safe bet for that. But for now, we don't have any plans to go back yet, and it's sad. I wish we could do it. I wish I could see people. We used to have people come in, live audiences for this stuff, man. I mean, that was fun talking to people from all over the place. But,
it is a different dynamic, isn't it?
Yeah, it is different. It's different when it's just a computer screen that you're looking at and a camera, but it is what it is.
Yeah, a lot of atheist shows have never done in person. I highly recommend it, guys. I know this is easy, kind of lazy. It's a little bit lazy.
Not as much crowd work, unless you got to do you're responding to the chat. That's a different kind of crowd work,
or taking calls. And then you need a sound guy. You need a tech guy behind the scenes. So you can get crazy. I understand that. And there's always glitches when it's live. There's always things to, work on the fly. I get that too. But actually scripting out a show is a lot of work. If you haven't scripted something, maybe try that. I don't know. And for some of you that just do scripted, maybe just try. Live is fun. I like live too. And in person, like I said, it's just a different dynamic. Sitting side by side, it feels better when I did those like last time when we saw each other in person, the last time you were on the show.
Yeah.
It was out on a back patio and we were sipping beer and, right next to each other doing religion trivia. That was, it felt
Right.
great.
Yeah, man. Happier
Yes.
times, but it is what it is.
Do you now the Faithless Forum 3 has been postponed once or twice already? So it's November like 18th. Do you see it
Yes.
getting postponed again, or is this it?
I see. For right now, the plan is still to meet in person, but I wouldn't doubt that they want to do something online. I'm not sure. My understanding was there was it was a reservation thing. They already paid money up for this hotel, and they have to still use it, or else they don't get money back and stuff. That's part of it. But I'm not on the board for that. I don't know all the decisions. All I know is that they want to. They were reluctant to try to do it even this year because of everything going on. So we'll see if that gets postponed again. I wouldn't be surprised.
With this new, is it Mu or Mu, the MU variant? Who knows?
Yeah.
And it's already 4 times right now. The hospitalizations and deaths 4 times higher right now than it was this time last year, even.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Even I could. I mean, I could complain about this to you all day about people not taking this thing seriously, but yeah, it's not great. It's not great where I'm at either.
That is a great segue for no. I'm not going to talk about ivermectin yet. What I wanted to talk about first is I want to put a graphic on the screen, but first, Godless Granny. Okay, it's concerning. There's only 5 viewers, which is quite a bit under average, and then that wouldn't bother me, except Godless Granny made it. Yeah, she said, if you can read this. Well, at the beginning of the show, the countdown, it went to 0, then to 7 minutes. So I'm wondering if people are having a hard time coming in. Put in the chat. Derek's in, B's in. So if you're not having a problem, or if there's something you had to do to come in, let us know in the chat. Okay, let me put this up. Let me give you a little background on it. Dan started a weight loss plan, lost quite a bit of weight here recently. We're going to talk about that. But early on, when he was first making his results public, he posted a graphic on social media, and I'm going to show this graphic. And before I do, I want to let you all, well, I'll do it. I'll share it as I'm talking. Okay. So this is what he posted. And I had never seen this before. I'd never looked at it this way. And I remember, I was a active duty combat Marine for 21 years. I always stayed peak physical condition. I've let myself go over the last 6 to 8 years. And so 1 September, I made a decision just 9 days ago. So I'm back on track. I'm going to start losing the weight. But seeing this, I looked at it. I saw things in a different way. Any diet, now correct me if I'm wrong, Dan. So what this is basically trying to say is any diet that actually works, it only works because of one thing, by creating a caloric deficit.
This is my opinion. Yes. Again, I'm not a doctor. I'm not doctor objectively, Dan. But just to give context of why I posted this, I believe I started my weight loss around April of last year. I was at a max. I was at about 250 pounds. Now I'm 6'5", so the bigger weight it's not as noticeable as it would be for someone who's a lot shorter than me. I'm definitely taller than average, but it was enough to where I wanted to do something. So in about 6 to 7 months, I lost 50 pounds. And
Congratulations, that's awesome.
Thank you. I got low enough to the point where people started telling me, Dan, you look too skinny, you should gain weight again. So I did that a little bit. What my secret for I didn't really post about my journey, because you don't want to post your journey as it's happening and then fail at it, because that's kind of embarrassing, right? So I didn't do it until after it was done, pretty much. Yeah. And but when people asked me how I did it, it was just, I just counted calories every day. That was really it.
So the Weight Watchers plan, just strict calorie counting.
It's just straight calorie counting. I didn't buy any extra
right
Weight
here.
Watchers or anything. You know, I just that's literally all I did. That and just exercise and that was it. You know, I didn't sign up for any particular programs or anything. I used an app to keep track of stuff or its exercises and things like that. But it was all me. And you know, at the time, of course, the world was kind of shutting down, so I had you know, a little more time to dedicate to personal projects like that. So yeah, that was it. So pretty cool.
Okay, we are broadcasting. So Trisha said, my nutritionist says less calories and a bit more movement, and you'll lose weight. Calories. That's right. So I think it was Penn and Teller. One of their bullshit. They did an episode on bullshit about weight loss fads, and it basically says exactly what you posted and what you're talking about here. It's all just very simple science. If you no, it was Ricky Gervais, not Penn and Teller. If you take in fewer calories than you burn, you will lose weight. I don't care. Glandular problem doesn't matter. It's physical science. If you're burning more calories than you're consuming, you will lose weight. Correct? Correct me if I'm wrong.
That is the core of it, but it's also important to consider you know, people with PCOS, people with other kinds of health maladies can prevent this process from happening as efficiently as it can. Okay, so I do agree at its core that's what it's about, but like, is it, you know, is it going to be the same for everybody? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. So I am lucky in that I don't have any, as far as I know, external factors that prevented me from losing the weight that I did as officially. Again, I'm also, you know, fairly young. That's going to affect it too. You know, so there's other complicating factors, but I think that's how I looked at it, at least, was just a matter of counting calories. So yeah, I didn't have to do any special extra things for it, but that doesn't mean that other people don't have to. I think that that worked for me. And I would encourage other people to try it if they hadn't. So yeah.
50 pounds. How long? What was the time frame?
It's about 7 months by the end of it. So
that's
yeah,
a nice healthy amount. I lost 41 pounds in 12 weeks once, and that's a little too fast.
That's a little fast.
Yeah.
A little fast.
Well, yeah, myself and another Marine, we were in Iraq, and I was getting we have weight standards, but I was always pushing that top weight standard for a while. And so we said, you know what, let's start. And we were just working out like freaking animals. And I'm just not doing that now. So I have to even really watch my diet even more so than I did back then, because I'm not exercising near. I mean, we were running 3 to 5 miles a day. We're on the mat sparring at least 3 rounds a day. We're hitting the weights. I mean, this is every day doing all this. And in fact, we were doing so much cardio, like you said, it was coming off in kind of almost that marathon body looking, almost that skinny fat man's disease, they call it, where your muscle tone, your fat muscle percentage. So we were even backing off the cardio because we were doing it too much. We already had the it's called cum gutters. You know, the little grooves you got there on the, you know,
talking about love muffins? You talking about
that groove? The groove makes a V.
Oh yeah, okay.
When you get the 6-pack and then you get they're called or porn grooves or something.
I hadn't heard that terminology, but I'll take your word for it.
Yeah. Yeah. We're saying, you know, I started 9 days ago and I haven't seen any results yet, of course, because it takes a while for it to start dropping off the cliff. And so you're right. I am really throwing myself out there because now I've told everybody. And well, that's a good. The flip side of that is now that I've told everyone, it's more impetus for me not to quit. So there's that.
See, there is that too. But yeah, I wasn't ready to post anything about it until I was fairly confident in the results there. So, you know.
Now, I want you to talk a little bit about being a vegan, how long you've been a vegan, and while you're talking, I'm gonna put a Facebook thread. It's ongoing. It's still going to. No, you know what? I'll put it up later. Tell me about veganism. How long have you been, and why are you?
So that actually started around the same time as I was doing the weight loss, but for unrelated reasons. I think, you know, there's been a couple different impetuses for this. I mean, you could say it's something I had been thinking about for the past couple of years. I think when Cosmic Skeptic first talked about it, that was probably what first really piqued my interest. But I don't know if I took it as seriously as I did until I adopted my cat, Pico, last year. And when I rescued the little guy, I was really thinking about, why do I care about this animal so much? Why am I willing to spend extra time and money and just resources on this one animal? And yet we have these other animals who have similar capacities as far as cognitive abilities and, things like that. And somehow they don't have the same moral consideration. Where is the standard here? Where's the line? And after really looking into it, I read a couple books on it. I was getting really serious about it. I kind of figured, well, it seems like it's mostly a cultural arbitrary line that we've drawn about food animals versus pet animals versus, just again, these arbitrary, and it just varies from culture to culture. It really doesn't seem like there is a scientifically drawn line in most people's lives. Most people aren't sitting down in front of the table and thinking, well, is it really ethical for me to eat this versus that? I mean, human beings have just been eating stuff since forever. So I figured I want to try to figure out those lines for myself. And I realized that when it came to cows and when it came to pigs and when it came to other animals with similar capacities, it didn't make sense for me to say these animals are okay, but dogs and cats aren't okay to eat. So I've started to make that transition for myself. Now that's with the knowledge of admitting, especially recently, I haven't been completely consistent with that ideology and ethic. But that doesn't mean that I don't value it and that I don't think that it's important for me to try to stay as consistent as I can with it, even though recently, since I kind of moved and it's been harder for me to be as consistent about it in the location where I'm at. That doesn't mean I don't think it's important, and I don't think it's something that I should strive towards, and I should encourage other people to strive towards. I also think it's an issue that, people in our community, it's a real hot button thing to talk about, and I'm disappointed with a lot of the conversations I see about it. I don't think people are thinking about it in the most, I don't want to say the most rational ways, because that sounds almost elitist. I want to say in the most productive ways, right? I think a lot of the times this stuff comes up. The vegan community is seen as a joke in a lot of people's eyes, and it's seen as something that can be actively made fun of. And then suddenly, when you have someone like me who's a content creator, is just attaching their name to that label, and then other people who are attaching the name to that label, well, suddenly now it's something we have to take seriously because these people are taken seriously in their communities. I hope people take me seriously, right? But and that's how it's kind of been. So I don't want it to be this thing of groupthink. I don't want it to be, because these other people are talking about it, we should too. I want people to explore these issues on their own and really figure out their own reasons why they do or don't do what they do. And if they're good reasons, right? It's the same kind of thinking that got me out of my Christianity, right? Why was I a Christian? Why did I believe the stuff that I believe? Why did I have the beliefs I did about animals and what was right and not right? So yeah, I have a lot of thoughts about it. It's an ongoing discussion for me, for sure.
I like what you said, the arbitrary line between pets and livestock.
Yeah,
that's true. It's a totally arbitrary line. Here's a Facebook thread that's still going on, and it started with, I'll show you how it started. This guy, he walked into this place and changing the world one burger at a time. It's a vegan restaurant, just opened up, and he and his wife are chuckling like, oh, it's going to go out of business. Sucks to be you, dumb vegans. And I put in the most amicable way I could. There's a stereotype that vegans, vegetarians are militant and confrontational, which is true. There are some out there. But
absolutely.
I have found that people who criticize them speak with more emotion and they get their pennies in a twist way more than we do with ethical concerns, it seems, in general.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, what's the stereotype about vegans and vegetarians? Oh, well, they're preachy. They try to get in everybody's business and they think they're right about everything. Okay. How many times has that been said about the atheist community? Right? Like, there's a lot of people who feel the same way. And yet when you sit down and have a conversation and realize, oh, this is what I really care about, these are really my values, suddenly that becomes more reasonable but we don't often give that consideration for vegans and vegetarians. And I wish that same consideration was given, because I think there's a lot you can learn from people who have been doing this a lot longer than I have, who have been way more interested for decades past what I've been. I mean, this has just been a thing for me for a little over a year now. You know, I'm definitely not an expert, but I'm glad I'm learning more about it every day.
Sorry, I coughed there with the mute off. That's the first time I've ever done that. Hope I didn't blow your ears out. Okay. I was just about to ask, because the last comment I got was from okay. All right. So the comments are working. I don't know why I'm getting so worried. All right. Local farmers market sells everything in too large of quantities. Yes. I lived in Germany for a few years, and it's what I saw is everything's so much fresher, and people don't go and stock up for the week and put it in their fridge. They're at the grocery store damn near every day. And usually it's a local market. You walk a couple blocks, you get what you need for dinner that night, and it's super fresh. And I don't know, it seems like that's a better way.
Yeah, we definitely have lots of problems with food deserts in this country. We have obviously a problem with nutrition. I mean, come on, what is one of the things America is most known for? It's being one of the most obese countries on the planet, right? I mean, when it comes to food and health, it's funny that as an American, I feel like I can talk about this, but I mean, it is an issue. And I'm not a vegan for health reasons in particular. I do think that there are benefits for it. There are disadvantages for it as well that you have to be careful about. Yeah, I do think that we could probably as a country afford to eat less cheeseburgers every week. I think statistically all across the board, that's just true, right? And just foods like that in general.
I've been a vegetarian, working on 9 years now, and it was
Mm,
totally ethical.
mm,
And I could make that. I'm not going to make that argument now, but I did
sure.
make that argument in the thread. I
Mm,
talked about slaughterhouses. There's a high incidences of the the workers in the slaughterhouse, particularly
mhm.
pork industry, suffering from PTSD because
Absolutely.
when pigs are slaughtered, I don't know if most people don't know this, but when a pig is in pain, it sounds eerily like a human screaming, and it's kind of sickening,
Mhm,
and I'm not going to go into the methods for putting them down, so don't change the channel. I'm not going to subject you to that, but
mhm.
I will say pneumatic jackhammers really, I mean, if you're going to eat meat, is there not a better way, pain free? I don't want anything to be in pain. I just
Mhm,
don't want anything to feel pain.
mhm.
I think that was the
Yeah,
main reason.
I think that's what it is for me too. I think it's out of I don't want to see beings suffer, and I think that pigs and cows are capable of suffering, and so I want to try to avoid that as much as possible. And unfortunately, I could be one of those people that says, "Oh, well, I'm going to wait until lab grown meat is a thing," but like that is just it's moving the goalposts almost a little bit for me. I mean, at what point is it? And people are saying, well, it has to be more commercially available, and I don't know. And to me, it's just like if I can do something about it now, which I'm in a position where I can, then I'm going to try my best to do that. Do I think every single person on earth is in a position to do that? Absolutely not. And I wouldn't suggest that for folks who don't have that. But I do think that a lot of people are more capable of it than they think if they're willing to just kind of let themselves realize that, talk themselves into that, they realize, oh, there actually is more that I can do than what I really think of. So
Indeed.
yeah.
Dan, have you tried the Impossible Whopper yet, though?
Oh yeah, of
Holy
course.
shit.
Yeah.
I'm in love with them. And here, I don't know if it's
Mhm.
nationwide, but it's buy one get a second one for $1. So I'll buy one. And so when you did a strict calorie counting. What I'm doing is intermittent fasting. So I'm only eating
Mhm.
it's OMAD, OMAD, one meal a
Mhm.
day. And for the last I've been doing it 9 days now. And I need to tweak it because my one meal a day, I go fucking nuts, and I can't do
Mhm.
that. And I'm
Mhm.
probably getting close to or over my calorie limit just in one meal. And I just throw down, boy. And so I've really got to limit it. And instead of going to Burger King, you know, I'm not going to eat out very often, but when I do go, I would just wolf down two Impossible Whoppers like it was nothing.
Yeah.
I would inhale them but now I'm putting one in the fridge. I'm going to have that one another day, or that,
I think that's another thing people don't realize about doing the vegan thing is they think that you have to eat salads every day, but like there's so much frozen stuff you can get I mean, depending on where you're at, right? But like, I don't know, it's there's a lot of vegan junk food out there. You know, it's not all salads and croutons. Yeah, there's other stuff.
I was a little bit worried that we wouldn't have enough to talk about for an hour, hour and a half, but I think we are doing great. Let's skip to something else. Now, I want to put something else up on the screen. I know you and I, neither of us are experts, and we're talking from a completely amateur layman point of view. And this is, I guess you consider, I don't even want to call it unpopular opinion because I don't espouse this. I'm just throwing it out there for just to take a look at. And do not, at the end of this, do not unsubscribe or think that I'm an anti-vaxxer, all right? Or think that I'm into weird woo-woo alternative medicine. So if you've seen any of my shows, you know that I'm totally, alternative medicine, as Tim mentioned, has either been proven not to work or has not yet been proven to work. And you know what they call alternative medicine that has been proven to work? Medicine. So I still hold to that. But on the screen, I'm going to, National Institute of Health. I found at least 3. There's probably more studies. Not even suggesting that ivermectin could have some efficacy against COVID-19. And I'm going to share with you a couple of them. And I'm not. It doesn't mean I'm going to run out and do horse dewormer, but I just want you to see your take on this. Okay. All right, here's the first one, and this is the entire study, but I'm just going to go to the conclusions in the abstract. Oh no. Okay. Did I miss? Oh, conclusion. Okay. So this is 18 randomized. This is a conglomeration of 18 randomized controlled treatment trials. Ivermectin in the use of treatment against COVID-19. Large statistically significant reductions in mortality, time to clinical recovery, and time to viral clearance. Significantly, this is look up here, National Institute of Health, government website. Significantly reduced the risk of contracting COVID-19 with the regular use of ivermectin. Now, this being said, and here's another one. You guys can read this as we're talking. Another one. This one is not so. This one basically says, the clinical trials that have been conducted show limited results, and only a few of them are actually were performed correctly. So there's the other side of it. What I want to ask you though, Dan, is if we were wrong and ivermectin seems to be has some efficacy in the treatment of COVID-19, how much egg on our face would we, the atheist community or the liberal community, in general, how much egg on our face would that make us look bad that we just eschewed it from the get-go and then it turns out? I mean, would that be something the conservatives can go, ha ha? Because
the people who were getting ivermectin, and I'm not commenting on the efficacies of these studies or the implications of these studies, but the people who were getting ivermectin were not doing it because these studies existed. They were doing, like, the vast majority of them were doing it because they saw on Facebook that it worked, or they saw from other sources. They are not doing the necessary research that to make healthy decisions for themselves to do this. They are not going through their doctors to get this ivermectin. The cases that we're seeing of people who are getting ivermectin are doing it through non-traditional means. They're getting medication that's meant for animals. That's not meant for human consumption. And that's why you're also seeing these crazy overdoses that are happening on ivermectin and stuff, is because they're not dosing it correctly, because they're not getting it a prescription from their doctor. They're getting something bought off of somebody from online or in their communities. So they're not doing it the way that a regular person would, which is, I'm feeling sick, I'm going to the doctor. The doctor is prescribing this medication for me. They are doing it all on their own. They're doing freelance medical work, and that is irresponsible for anyone to do. So
yeah. Okay, yeah. I mean, ivermectin. We all know there is a human. if you take it in human dosage, it's not just meant for livestock. I mean, it is prescribed to humans
Yes,
at a
it
regular
is.
rate as well for
Mhm.
whatever, who knows. But if it works towards it, I think it's been used. I've read some of the abstract. It was used for quite a while, or still is, against reducing the symptoms of HIV even. So it's called a protease. It's a viral protease. I think it inhibits the viral activity, right? If
Mhm.
this is true, this is the big question. If it's true, and if you take it in human doses under the supervision of a doctor, and it has some benefits, do we as the liberals owe conservatives an apology to some extent?
Well, again, I would cite this fact that the reasoning there is still off as to why they were using it in the first place. So it's irresponsible that if they got a lucky guess on this, they got a lucky guess. Because again, they're not doing it because they are reading scientific abstracts, like at least the vast majority of them aren't. And if they are, they're probably interpreting this data wrong. I mean, when before we discovered the uses of other, I'm trying to think of, I had an example for this, it's slipping my mind here, but there's a reason why we have clinical trials for this stuff, so we can figure out if this stuff works or not. We shouldn't be testing this randomly on human populations out of their own merit. Is not a good way to do science. We do science in these controlled experiments and in these controlled methodologies. Maybe that some people found success with it ahead of time. I mean, good for them, but it's still an irresponsible decision to make. I find that when there are cancer patients who want to try anything out there that works for them, if they go into alternative medicine territory, I think there's a reason to be sympathetic to that. Because if there's often a rationale there that, oh, well, this is already an inevitable fate for me, I might as well try this and see what works. But with the COVID stuff, people were taking this without having COVID yet, instead of getting a vaccine. like the reasoning is different. You know what I mean? It's just not the same. Would I have to owe somebody an apology because they're taking this medication, of just freebasing it? I don't think so. I really don't.
If you or I were among the many liberals that post memes about it, just make
Yeah.
mocking it, and people who do it, or
Yeah.
openly mocking in whatever format, online or off, I don't know. I haven't.
Maybe
That's
so.
just not my nature.
I
No,
don't
no,
I know you're familiar with my Twitter. I mean, you pulled up a graphic I posted like a year ago. So yeah, I know you're somewhat I know that's not personally what I'm super into. I'll post I'll post people's crazy takes. I do that, but I don't that's just quoting people. That's not like,
yeah,
actively
yeah, and
there's a
and
bit
I
of
always say
difference there.
attacking ideas is fair game. Attacking bad ideas is
Yeah.
not attacking people. It's not the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
but again, I think the reasoning is different. Getting a lucky guess on something is different from doing this because, oh, this is what the science has been saying all along, and you guys weren't following the science. No, the situation hasn't been like that. This has been a very new. COVID-19 just started. The people who were saying, oh, this has worked before with other stuff, that wasn't for COVID-19. That was for other use cases. But
This is my friend Jason. He goes is Ralph on here, but his name's Jason. We're filler. He's Army.
Mhm.
So we got that in common. He always has an interesting take on things. But
Yeah.
how would you respond to this? And the fact that he's saying that we are being, as a conglomerate, are being disingenuous because we're we're implying that ivermectin has never been used, prescribed to humans. Basically, how do I say it? Now, my reaction would be it has been prescribed, but never for COVID-19 to my knowledge. And if it turns out that it is useful against COVID-19, we wait
Okay.
for that to come. Yeah.
Let's. So I'm just looking this up now. What does this say? It says that the Haruo Ozaki, I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, chairman of the Tokyo Medical Association, came out and recommended the emergency use of drugs. such as ivermectin, administered to those COVID-19 patients,
What does that mean?
declaring that they exhibit efficacy towards preventing disease progressions in other nations. Okay, so what is the context there? The context is that they are making a specific case scenario in which this drug is to be administered. It's again not for just everyday use. That's not how ivermectin's been used in the past for this kind of thing, as far as I'm familiar with it. And as far as I know, it's probably not going to be in the future. But I'm also not a doctor, so take what you can as a grain of salt. But yes, and as you point out, of course, ivermectin's been used for other things as well besides COVID-19. That's not under question. The question is whether or not you should be just doing this and not taking your vaccines. That's the main push where this ivermectin craze has been going towards. So
you alluded to maybe a reasoning why people are taking that, but not they're quick to sell out the feed stores of ivermectin, but then they're turning around and not taking the vaccine. And is that I know it boils down to evangelical Christianity. It boils down to God will take care of everything. And it boils down to science, whether it wants to or not, is chipping away at religion. And hardcore Christians are anti-science. Therefore, anything science comes up with, we're gonna just push back on. I know that's the underlying. Do you agree with that? And what's the cause of this not getting the vaccine but taking the alternative shit instead? Is it anti-science or anti-government or a combination?
So I agree and I disagree. I think there are hardcore evangelical types that are definitely into this, but as you know, I cover a show which talks about a lot of groups who are involved in conspiracy theory thinking and who do this mindset. There are plenty of secular people that are definitely interested in this idea. People who don't go to church, who are just as on board about taking these drugs as anybody else is, because there are many interested groups that share similar interests, but may not fully share the same ideologies, but run in circles. There's a huge anti-government crowd that the evangelical right is one part of, but is also part of a greater sphere of influence there. I mean, QAnon as a phenomenon is not wholly a Christian one, although there have been Christian denominations that have been more accepted of it than others, and now I would cite that as an example of a group of people who have been part of this thinking, those who runs in these kinds of similar circles. So I agree and disagree with you there.
I do have an atheist buddy who's a 9/11 truther, and
sure.
We did a 2-hour show and pre-recorded on the Pentagon and whether it was actual missile or a plane.
Yeah,
and
I talked to people on my show that were atheists and for truthers on 9/11 as well.
But don't you think big picture, the secular, they do exist, but they seem anomalies. It seems like, and I don't know any QAnon people or anything of that level that are not totally fundamentalist Christians.
What is the biggest proponent of one of the biggest proponents of QAnon in this country? Do you know what the biggest ones was outside of evangelical Christianity?
Outside of evangelical Christianity,
it is Instagram influencers who are into New Age phenomenon. Okay, New Age works are a huge part of this. People who are not Christian at all, who are super into this, and I got the receipts to show you that. So yeah, there's definitely a huge portion of people who are just anti-government or just kind of have those outside of mainstream ideologies and outside of mainstream organizations' beliefs that congregate online in communities, in like-minded communities. So
you're right, Jason. Yeah, Dan, you're right. I'm probably just living in a bubble. I just don't see it as much, but of course that is anecdotal evidence, and it's the weakest form of all evidence, going off of what I can see and what's physically right around in my sphere of influence.
Sure.
Let's, before we talk on another beefy topic, let's skip to something light. Your show, Truth Wanted and Talk Heathen, do you I'm sure you encounter the shows I've seen. The first one I saw with Courtney, there was one caller in particular, and Courtney still laughs about it, and she thinks she handled it pretty well, and I agree. Um, Big picture though, do any of the callers stick out as just the most frustrating, or just the worst, or weird, or
Yeah, well, so there's a lot of calls that stick out for different reasons. I've had the pleasure of talking to people who range the whole spectrum of beliefs. I would say that in general, the ones who have the more out there beliefs, in general, are typically kinder in some respects because they know that I try to be a safe place on my platform for people to express themselves in places where they might otherwise not feel comfortable talking. But obviously there's limitations to that too. But anyway, the hardest of Christians are really the most frustrating sometimes, especially ones who I've had a few instances where people have tried to talk about my story in general because they know that I was a former Christian, and that's kind of public out there who tried to make assumptions about me and why I am the way that I am, who think that they know me because they saw a video of me on the internet once, and I think that's the most frustrating, not just for myself, but for other people who have gone through similar experiences of people who try to like psychoanalyze you for one reason or another as to why you are the way you are. And those calls are always the most frustrating, I think, because one, obviously it's personal, but also because I know I'm not the only person who's experienced something like that.
the armchair psychoanalyst. Yeah,
Oh yeah.
I could see how that would be frustrating as hell. Because any true, my co-host, the reason you guys don't see Courtney is because she's working on her master's and she's about to get married here in a month or two. So she's busier than any human should be right now. But
Mm-hmm.
she's got a psychology background, and she will tell you it has to be one-on-one in confidence, and it has to be over a certain period of time before you can make any type of evaluation whatsoever. You can't just watch Alex Jones on his show and try to, or Donald Trump. There is even a book out there by psychoanalysts, and it's very clear at the beginning. Listen, we're not making a medical diagnosis here. We're telling you this tends to be, in very general terms. We're not psychoanalyzing him, but here's what people that say this or act like this tend to, it's very general.
Sure.
You can't
Well,
put
having an opinion is different from diagnosing somebody, right? Having an opinion is different from telling somebody this is why the way you are, and here's why. I have opinions about Alex Jones. I'm not his doctor. I definitely have some opinions about him though. And I'm someone who probably who has seen more Alex Jones content than the average person should. But it's a fine line between diagnosing somebody and saying what your thoughts are in summary about somebody, and I've definitely talked to people who've crossed that line for sure.
I watch a lot of YouTube. Well, not so much now that I'm. You probably are in the same boat where the more you are a creator, the less you have time to be a consumer.
Yes.
But I don't really watch a lot of TV. When I do get some spare time, it's YouTube, and I come across some YouTubers, and it's my bias. I say, oh, classic narcissist, probably, meets, X number of the 40 symptoms of narcissism. That's a classic narcissistic behavior. Or this person is a little bit aspy. Look how he kind of, he exploded, at the least provocation. He's probably got a little bit Asperger's syndrome. This person's a little bit on the spectrum. And I'm doing this in the back of my head, and I'm making these just knee jerk, diagnoses, which it's way more complicated than that.
Of course. I mean, that's just what it means to be human, I think, on some level,
Yeah.
But I'm also, I don't know, I'm not making whole YouTube videos about this person is the way they are because X, there's a difference there for me, I think.
Dan, what as long as we're talking about YouTubers real quick, this wasn't on my list, but it made me think of it. How much YouTube are you watching? Are you able to see this new crop of up and comers, these new atheist channels that maybe less than 1,000 subs? Are any catching your eye, or who are you kind of watching
Oh man, I so one of the reasons why I started Truth Wanted was you don't see this as much now because the ACA has changed, but Truth Wanted was the only show at the time that was bringing in outside guests on a regular basis. Atheist Experience would do it every once in a while, and they used to have nonprofits also did some rotations too, but Truth Wanted was every single week there was somebody new. And at the time I was really hunting for a lot of smaller channels and stuff to kind of bring on board. I luckily knew some people, and that was another reason why I started too, because I knew some people in the YouTube community where I could bring them on my show, and they gave me a good jump start to the show as well. Now the infrastructure for Truth Wanted is so much so where I'm not having to schedule guests all the time anymore. It used to be me. Now we have somebody on production who's doing that, along with other stuff, which is great. So I'm not looking as hard as I used to. I'll be honest. I see stuff every once in a while, and I get emails from people suggesting guests and stuff, and I'll look at that. But now I'm not looking as hard as I used to.
Has your production people ever booked a guest that you were like, oh, screw that, I'm not gonna have them on, or have people mentioned? Have your fans mentioned a guest and you're like, no, I'm just not, for whatever reason?
Yeah, so I am a volunteer of the show, but I'm also its producer. I'm a volunteer producer. Okay, so I've always had very explicit control over who comes on, and I'm always having those conversations about whether I'm comfortable talking to them, or even if the other hosts are comfortable with it. So I've always been able to have control over that conversation. As far as fan suggestions, there's definitely some stuff that people suggested where I'm like, I wouldn't touch that with a 10-foot pole, but I wouldn't be able to get some of them anyway. Like, I don't know if I'd ever actually talk to Joe Rogan, like that's an example. Like I find Joe to be not great. not someone that I think is wholly doing good for the world, and that would trouble me to like talk about him. It would be great for views, but like you gotta draw the line somewhere. So there's like little examples like that, but I think I see more people who are wondering, why the heck do you have this person on? And it's usually for one fun, crazy reason or another.
Joe Rogan, I disagree. He seems like a really genuine guy who sometimes gets led astray by his guests, by influences, but I think he's a genuine, curious intellect. I think he's genuinely looking for the truth out there.
I think genuineness and curiosity are good things to have. I also think you have a responsibility when you have over 1 million people listen to your podcast to make sure that you're fact checking yourself as much as possible. And I don't think Joe does that to a degree, which I find to be, respectable.
And that's a really great point. And at his level, and at our my little fish in the sea level, I think it's still incumbent on even a channel like mine with 8,000 subs. I think we should still do our homework. I don't think it matters your fan base. I think it's incumbent on us to do our homework and not spew misinformation to the best of our knowledge. I mean,
right,
it's going to happen.
And I also want to point out, like, that doesn't just apply to Joe, but also people he brings on this show. We talk about everybody who creates content. And this is a tangent where we're going on here, but look, Joe had Alex Jones on his show several times. Okay. Anybody who is that close with Alex Jones, that's not good. It's just categorically not a good thing to do. Like, I don't have to list Alex Jones's sins, do I? I don't have to go into a whole thing about why that's a bad idea, but like, that's just, one example of someone where he was actively not only saying was a good person, but promoting in some respects. And that's where I have to say this isn't responsible in any way.
Platforming him, I'm cool with that. And even having viewpoints that disagree with mine, if he's looking at it as objectively as possible, I don't know. I don't think I would have.
I don't think he was. Do you?
No. And there's certain, they were really chummy. But in my defense, it looked like I was really chummy with a certain somebody, and I'm not bringing up drama, Kyle Curtis. And I've only met the guy in person once. And although it looked like we were really chummy, I did make a point to tell him I'm against what he's doing 4 times during that interview.
I think
But
it's
to everyone
important.
else, they said, you're a bad person. And I lost 3 friends over it. You're a bad person because you were too friendly. You didn't ask hard enough questions. So it almost sounds like you're saying that to Joe Rogan. Like, you didn't ask hard enough questions. You got too chummy with him.
Well, I don't think
You're done.
he should be platforming Alex Jones, period. That's my opinion on it. But even if he does have it on, he brought Alex on as a friend. I think that's very clear. And I don't think I don't think you should be friends with a person like that. But also, like, Alex Jones has done irreparable harm to many people, and thousands of people. And no acknowledgement of that was ever made. It was just a fun chat with friends. And here's some extra rabbit holes that you can fall down, and then be on a pipeline to conspiracy thinking and political agendas. And that's irresponsible. Absolutely.
Alex Jones, and there's one of Trump's lawyers, the female, I forget her name. So among many other people, but these 2 in particular were sued by the ballot counting system, for a lot of money, civil suit, right? And their defense was basically the same. It was basically no rational person could ever believe the kind of shit we're saying. I mean, it was you guys go look it up. It really was. If you guys can put her name, I forget her name, though, Trump's lawyer. Dang it, she's a nut job. And Alex Jones it was the same defense. It was no one in their right mind. I'm for entertainment purposes only, which is very telling. Now, if he did like an Orson Welles War of the Worlds thing, where before every program he said a little disclaimer like, this is for entertainment purposes only, I'm going to do some crazy shit here just to, for the lulls and sensationalists, just so you know, it could be a quick little disclaimer. That would go a long way. But he's got people tune in, and we already know now, he's already admitted it, that he's not genuine. He's just saying whatever he wants to get people to riled up. That's a fact. That's an objective fact. If he's not doing a disclaimer, you're right. He is causing harm. He has that kind of influence.
Absolutely. And I'd also say, again, not to plug my own stuff here, but I had Jordan Holmes on my show for the from the Knowledge Fight podcast, which is a podcast that exclusively looks at Alex Jones and what he posts every day and his content and stuff. And I think that show brings some interesting insight onto Alex and what he does. I think that the sad thing is, I think you're right in that he's not genuine in a lot of stuff, but I also think he is genuine in some of the stuff he says, and that almost makes it even worse. But regardless of his personal beliefs, as you've correctly pointed out, it is bringing harm. And what is the exact? Are we ever going to have an exact rule that says who you should have on and who you're not? There's very few hard rules. There's some, but I think they're few and far in between. It's always going to be a subjective thing at the end of the day. And I'm comfortable with the limits I've personally put on myself for my program. Whether other people agree with that, that's up to them. But it's an ongoing conversation, and it's a fascinating one that I think every content creator is having right now.
What was the name of that channel again?
That podcast is called Knowledge Fight. It's a wonderful, wonderful program. I recommend any of your audience that likes this show would certainly like that show.
And it's totally dedicated to just Alex Jones or stuff.
Completely like Alex Jones. They do some one-offs on some on Project Camelot, which is another program about aliens and other kinds of things. But mostly it's the 2 hosts where they dissect the previous week's shows on Alex Jones, and Alex Jones goes live for like 4 hours every day, so it's a lot. They just kind of break it down to individual clips that are interesting. So
he's lost so much of a fan base. I mean, he might go 4 hours a day, but he's been canceled. He's been on his InfoWars has been a thing for over 20 years. But it's not as broadcast. It's not syndicated anymore. It's harder to get, I guess.
It's syndicated.
If you want to see him,
it's still syndicated. It's not. It is. It's still syndicated. It's not very, very, very many places, but it's still syndicated in some local stations.
Nut job. Okay, Dan, I'm going to ask you, before the show, I said I was going to ask you, just give me an example of an unpopular opinion you hold. And I guess I've I guess I've kind of alluded to maybe a couple that I might lean towards already, but yours was that you're a vegan, and we've already beat that
Sure.
horse. Is there any other unpopular opinions? And
Oh man.
a part B to it is, do you have to kind of watch what you say when you're part of a bigger organization live being broadcast? Is there anything that you could say that might get you in trouble? I'm not saying you have to toe the line, but
Mhm.
If you disagree with the other hosts of the other however many shows there are down there, if you
Mhm.
disagree with them, opposing viewpoints are welcome.
Yeah, I mean, like I think there's this mentality sometimes when it comes to the atheist community of Austin that it's just this shadow organization that works, has very mysterious ways. But look, it's a nonprofit. The board is on the website. All the actions of the board are on the website, and all the hosts are out there. Obviously, all of us hosts are friends. We talk outside of hosting, and most importantly, we're all volunteers. Like we don't stake our claim to saying this is what the ACA has to say. There's a disclaimer at every show that says, look, this is all of our opinion. And of course, at times we disagree. I disagree with Matt Dillahunty on things. Every time we probably do a show together, I think it's just, we're all just people who have very similar interests, and we're doing it through the vehicle that is the ACA. And it's fun. In my shows in particular, I get a lot of leeway on how I want to do the shows, and how the organization, not every host gets to do that because they're not producers on it. So I'm a producer of this one, but yeah, it's everybody that's on there is saying stuff because they want to do it. There's no script outside of the plugs for the organization where it's like, oh, you have to keep this opinion. People go on with their own takes. It's pretty awesome.
With that in mind, do you have an unpopular opinion you would like to share with us besides?
Yeah, I was kind of thinking about it
Yeah.
because this is related to it. I did a month on my show where I exclusively had Christian guests on for a month. So that's something that most people at the ACA thought I was crazy for doing, but I was really gung ho about it because I thought, oh, this would be great, because I wasn't just getting anybody. I was getting progressive sort of, I don't want to say thought leaders, because some of them, they have varying influences, but people who had respectable audiences in these Christian communities who politically thought pretty much the same thing I did on a lot of issues. But when it came to issues of faith, of course, we had disagreements on. And I thought it was wonderful. I thought it was great conversations. I got a lot of feedback from people that didn't like it, who were just like, why are we having this? Talking to these people, and I was just kind of struck by this. Like, isn't the whole point to have conversations with people? Isn't this not what we're interested in at the end of the day? I love the conversations that I had. I would definitely do it again, despite all the heartache it caused me and the headaches it caused me from people who just weren't as into it. I get it. Maybe it's a little bit of a different format than what people were used to, but Truth Wanted has always been an experimental show for me of just trying new things. And I found it quite refreshing to talk to other people. And I think I changed a few some guests' minds on some stuff. I don't know, but it was fun. It's fascinating. I think more people should do that kind of thing. I think you should be encouraged to talk to especially Christians who are more in the progressive side and see where you agree and disagree on issues, and see how much of their political thought and other thought is based on their religion or based on secular influences. It's fascinating to look at.
Totally agree, Dan. We do it on this show, but I think that, yeah, I would consider that an unpopular, especially, well, if you look at the atheist YouTube community in general. I don't think it's it's not being done. We're a minority having believers on the show as
most
guests.
of the time these conversations are with hardcore evangelicals, right? And I think that negatively influences the idea of what the average Christian looks like, because the average Christian is not the hardline evangelical worldwide, right? In the United States and in certain places, yes, it is the average. All right. But if we're talking about the billion people on earth that believe in Christianity, Christianity comes in many flavors, many flavors. And we have to talk about all of those flavors. We can't just keep pretending like, oh, every single Christian you talk to believes that the earth is 6,000 years old, yada, yada, right? There's a multitude in those beliefs.
I'm going to put this back up here. I wasn't going to do one of my, I guess, since I am for the most part pro Second Amendment, that would be an unpopular opinion. So Kelly, I disagree with you there, but that's okay. Kelly and I are friends. I'm sure that's not going to affect our friendship. And being pro Second Amendment doesn't mean I'm for very sweeping reforms in firearm control policies. Just right off the bat, and I'm going to say the gun show loophole, and probably Jason's going to chime in, but bump stocks, high capacity magazines. There's a lot of the background checks. How long does it take to get the background check to get a concealed carry license? Takes a good long while, but you can walk in. When I got my pistol, it literally took 20 minutes from the time I broke the hatch and told them and picked out the pistol I want, and 20 minutes later I'm walking out. The background check had been done. That there's something kind of little suspect about that. So reforms, yes. I don't know. And you know what? I could be swayed the other way. If I could see myself completely, my brother, for instance, is way anti-gun, just like Godless Granny. And we've had this conversation before, but I could see changing my mind on it. It wouldn't be the first time that I've changed my mind on a major issue. In fact, I've changed my mind on 6 major issues in the last 2 calendar years. So and that's a good objective way of knowing how unbiased you are. How many times have you changed your mind on something big? People don't use that litmus test very often.
Yeah. What if you're right the whole time? What if you're
what does that say about you if you never change your mind?
I know. I agree with you. I agree with you, of course. But yeah, it's true. People, I also think it is a privilege to be able to talk about these issues like we do all the time on the internet and just have that time to really explore and think about these ideas. I'm definitely privileged to be able to host a show and talk about stuff and do the kind of work that I do. And so it doesn't surprise me when people don't always have the time to think of these things all the way through, or they're just not always interested. I also know that I have very particular interests that not everybody would think is interesting. So I try to consider that as well. And, and with my privilege, of course, I also refer to my access to education and my access to my ability to interpret things like even just base level, like news articles and scientific literature that's relevant to whatever I'm thinking about. So
yeah. Switch tangent number 5 or whatever it is. On social media. So I belong to numerous like Facebook groups that are atheist versus Christian debate groups, or agnostic atheist, and the atheist experience and the unofficial atheist experience Facebook page. So a lot of chat going on, a lot of interfaith chatting. Often I hear lately, in particular, I've been seeing a lot. Someone's starting off their conversation with, "When you chose to be an atheist, ... fill in the blank. When you chose to be an atheist, or when you made the decision to be an atheist." And the first thing that pops in my head, I just want to get your take on it. I always say belief is a subset of knowledge. Okay, so a belief is a knowledge claim, and it is not. It's a realization. It's never a choice. You can't choose to believe something.
Yes.
Would you agree?
I agree with that. I think there is a misnomer when we talk about belief in the sense that I can't believe that the earth is flat. I simply can't. There's no reason for me to, right? I need a particular reason in order to believe that. I cannot choose between believing the earth is flat today versus believing it's round tomorrow. I can work with that assumption in playing out scenarios and work with that in making decisions. But when it comes to real core belief. Like I'm talking about from the heart, baby. Like that's just not something that is as manipulable like that. And unfortunately, that language comes to, you know, when we have these conversations of, like you said, when someone chooses to be an atheist. I did have to decide that I had wanted to be honest with myself and use a label that was more accurate to where I was at, because I was like an atheist in denial for a while, for sure. But that's not typically what people mean when they say stuff like that. So yeah, I'm probably in agreement with you there.
It makes me think about, you know, the conservative right will always tout homosexuality as a lifestyle choice.
Sure.
I equate it to that.
Mhm.
And the funniest comeback that I see people use is, oh, so heterosexuality is a choice too. So you
Right.
could theoretically choose to become a homosexual for a day, right?
Sure. Right.
And when that they can't answer that. And
Of
because
course.
if they say yes, yeah, you know, it's
Well, what you should really wonder is the people who do say, "Why, yes, it is a choice," and in that case, maybe their sexuality isn't as clear cut as they thought it was, right? Like if they could say, "Oh, I can be in a heterosexual relationship today and be in a homosexual one tomorrow," well, maybe you feel differently about your sexuality than I do, because that's not something that's as easy for me to do, right?
you know, as an if someone was willing to someone that espouses that ideology, it would be willing to conduct an experiment for the purposes of science to, and I'm not saying you have to act on the homosexuality. I just want
Mhm.
you just stay at home for 24 hours. You don't have to interact with anyone, but I want you to think, I want you to choose to be homosexual for 24 hours. And I want to come in and interview you while you are in homosexual mode. And if you truly believe you are homosexual for that 24-hour period, something like
Yeah.
that. It could be tested scientifically.
Yeah, I at some level, yeah, there's a lot of interesting research. Uh I think the first ideas about choice, I think when I first read Sam Harris's book on free will a few years ago, that was like my first open when I was doing like the literature dive on religion and stuff, you know, that book was on my radar. And talking about free will and stuff is really curious, because I don't particularly believe in free will. So it's weird when we use this language of choice anyway when we're talking about our decisions, because I don't think we fully understand what we even mean when we say, "Oh, I'm going to choose to eat this today." I think there's a lot of unknowns there. We're just kind of describing a phenomenon that's not fully understood, which is fascinating. But again, this is a tangent. So, but I guess this show's all about tangents. So,
That this one,
yeah.
our show in general tends to go that way, but this one is designed
Hmm.
that way. Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think free
Hmm.
will is a much deeper, complex
Yeah.
topic than people give credit for. And Sam Harris's book was very compelling. I'm not saying it was a
Hmm.
clincher, but
Hmm.
boy, it was definitely something. I need to pull that back, dust it off, and read it again. Um, do you still have? Is there an Objectively Dan channel, a personal channel?
So there is, and it's where I started to post some stuff on there. There's a lecture of me talking about street epistemology on there and stuff. But you know, I when I first started that, I was still in college, and I was also just starting volunteering at the ACA, doing call screening stuff, and eventually Truth Wanted. And Truth Wanted kind of took over a lot of what I do for activism, because it ended up, you know, being a thing I was worth putting more time into. So I don't work as much on personal projects as much as I like. I work full time outside of that stuff. So in order for me to work full time, do the activism stuff I already do, and keep like a normal social life on some level, I haven't given as much time to personal stuff. But I am curious into trying more of that kind of thing. I'm not sure what I would do yet, though. Maybe if people want more vlog style videos or something, I've thought about that. But yeah, I'm not sure. I'm interested though. Nothing yet though. That's a long answer to what should be a really simple question.
uh, well, my next question was going to be if $100,000 just dropped in your lap, and you were in a financial situation where you could make y- your personal YouTube channel. You know, Truth Wanted, Talk Heathen, still side projects, but you can
Hmm.
the 100,000 would be a starter money. How would you shape your channel? Oh, and also your influences. what got you even started wanting to do it?
Man, okay. So those are like two different questions there. I think the
It sure-
first
it
one,
was, sorry.
I think the first one would be, yeah, I'd be interested in developing a personal project. I think probably what it would look like would be me being able to give, I don't know, this sounds so generic now, but like I maybe giving my takes on current events. That's so boring. I don't know. Maybe like that would be some version of it. I
Current
haven't
events
had a
are
lot of
hot though. Current events are the hot
true,
topic.
but I want to be creative with the things that I do. Like I'm just naturally that kind of person that just has to have like it just has to be a little bit different, you know, from everybody else in order for me to feel like I've successfully contributed to something. Because I there's a part of me that likes not being the same as everybody else. I don't know what it is. If in Enneagram terms, I'm a 4. If you like the Enneagram, if you believe in its validity, so take with that as you will, Enneagram lovers. But yeah, I think I would want to develop a personal platform and do some crazy stuff with it. I'd probably get with some friends in the community and brainstorm and see what I could do with it. What was your second question?
Influences.
What were my influences?
Yeah, was the atheist experience, was that your big influence that drove you to volunteer there and then start your channel, or how did it work?
When I started volunteering for the ACA, it's because I needed a community. I didn't have anybody to go to, and the ACA was close at the time. When I first started, I was living in Waco, Texas, and Waco is about an hour and a half drive from Austin. So I would drive on the weekends when I was still in college, going to Austin just because it was the biggest community around where I could actually hang out and find other people that saw the things that I was interested in. When I first conceived of Truth Wanted, I actually didn't consider it as a call-in show. I wanted it to be kind of like what Anthony Magnabosco and other street epistemologists do, and just kind of have conversations with people on the street. But I was convinced by Vern Grainer, who is on the board now and does a lot of stuff with the ACA, that we should probably utilize the resources of the call-in format because the ACA, you know, is a solid infrastructure for that. So I ended up turning it into a call-in show, and that's what it's been ever since. But you know, like AXP, I definitely watched it, but I wasn't a super active weekly listener or anything. I obviously Anthony Magnabosco has had an influence on my life, so I take after him. But I take after some of my buddies, like Genetically Modified Skeptic. I take after, you know, just like other people in the community too. Paul Gia is really great. Telltale Atheist, Shannon Q, you know, those folks who I'm proud to call friends are really ones where I kind of also looked up to at the time before I was making stuff and could call them friends. So
Great segue. So you named off damn near every Faithless Forum.
that's true. They are
organizer.
Faithless Forum people,
So
aren't they?
we'll jump right into that. And I
Yeah.
knew it was going to happen because Austin is the mecca of atheism, online atheism.
Apparently.
It has been, and it's always been. And I'm going to tell you a short little story right after this. But so I knew it was just a matter of time. The first two Faithless Forums were right here. I mean, 20 minutes from my house and here in Dallas. So I knew it was just a matter of time before it would migrate down there, but that's okay. I'm still going. If it doesn't get postponed, I'll see you in November. I don't know if I've told this story on the show real quick, Dan. When I was stationed in San Antonio at Medina Annex of Lackland Air Force Base, it's about the same distance as you were in Waco.
Mhm.
This was mid 90s. There was an online atheist experience, but atheist experience was around. It was cable access.
Right.
I don't know if you're familiar with the history of it.
Oh,
But
yeah, of course.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sure you, okay. So it was cable access. Now, one of the rules for cable, I wanted to see atheist experience and I wanted to help out. And I couldn't watch it in San Antonio because if a local cable access, one of the strict requirements is that show has to either come from the local area or it has to be physically mailed. The VHS tape had to be physically mailed to a person, and that person had to act in its stead as the show. And I, for a while there, for a couple of years, I was the San Antonio liaison that would get from Austin. I would get the VHS tapes in the mail and take them to the broadcast studio.
Wow.
And I had to sit there for the duration of the show. I had to watch it from the studio. I couldn't just drop it off and go home and watch it on cable access. I had to be there representing Atheist Experience as liaison for San Antonio.
That's crazy. Yeah, when they finally stopped doing the public broadcast, I think that was what 2014. It was before I came on board, but it's so funny because I genuinely think, and it's hard to pull metrics for this because they public access, of course, is notorious for not keeping track of a lot of this kind of stuff. I think Atheist Experience, I think you can make a case that it's probably the most successful call-in show, but well, at least most successful public access television show, probably in the world, right? I mean, I can't think of any that have had the same level of influence as a public access show like Atheist Experience has. Certainly in the U.S. I mean,
Across all
it's
genres, I never really. You might be right.
but that's the thing, right? Because there's so many public access shows out there, and a lot of it's not super well tracked. But hey, like AXP is the only public access show that I know that people can really refer to. A lot of this other stuff, it kind of gets lost over the years. But that's the thing, right? That's something I may never be able to fully demonstrate because who knows, right? But I mean,
Wow.
it's got millions and millions of views on YouTube. I don't know of any other public access shows that have been doing the same thing.
Right.
So.
And I always enjoy watching the lost episodes, the old grainy. Yeah. Sometimes they'll put those up. I think there's a whole playlist.
They've had a lot of characters, a lot of hosts on these programs. And it's interesting being a part of that legacy, I will say.
Awesome. I think I have run out of questions. What are we at? Oh yeah, we're man, that's good timing. Let's start with final thoughts, and then we'll do plugs again, and then I've got something at the end.
Okay.
If you got any final thoughts.
Let's see. Final thoughts. I don't know. I am happy where I'm at doing activism stuff online. I think it's cool. It's a privilege. I love doing it, and I encourage other people to do it too if it's something you're really interested in. The community is only growing. If any Joe Schmo like me can get in front of a microphone and talk about what they think about stuff, surely you can too. I'm really happy to be a part of a time where there's been so much change to the community, even since I've started being online. I think it's becoming a more accessible space and a more open space for people. So if you've been thinking about doing stuff, do it. Absolutely do it. But those are my thoughts. Should I do the plugs now?
Sure.
Is that what? Okay.
Yeah. Let's talk Heathen. Easy to search for.
So
Truth Wanted.
Yeah.
Which
So I
to this day cannot stop talking about her. She had such a fun time coming down there and doing the in-person thing.
I'm so glad she was on one of the really earlier shows too. That was one of the first year we were doing it. So definitely check that out if you haven't already. But yeah, I host about once a month on Talk Heathen, and then I'm on most Fridays on Truth Wanted, which are both on the AEN podcast network, and you can also find their YouTube channels so check them out.
You're a
and follow me on Twitter at Objectively Dan. I'm that's the only social media I use for that kind of stuff. So
yes, I'll add that to the description section. Your show has a great advantage too, because so many people, and I know, well, this is anecdotal evidence again. I have a small sample size, but from what I'm seeing in the analytics, it looks like a lot of people consume shows like this as they commute to and from work. And and visual is not a big factor. People can enjoy your type of show, call-in shows,
yes,
while they're driving, and that's another good thing.
Yeah, we have a very strong podcast audience, which is why we plug it so much. Even though, of course, we're filming it for the intent of putting it on YouTube mostly, like our podcast audience is also a significant factor for all of our shows, and it should be something you should consider too if you're deciding to make content.
Awesome. Okay, so you're going to be my test case. I'm going to ask this of every guest from here on out, because my promos, my intros are getting stale. So if you could please, sir, I'm going to make it full screen and talk a little. Am I full screen? Can you see me? I don't know. You can see just me.
See.
Oh, wait.
There you go.
Here we go. All right. So talk a little before you say it, so it actually switch screens. But if you could just say, hi, I'm Objectively Dan, and you're watching Atheist Edge, or something like that. And I'm going to use it in an intro.
I got it. I'm ready for you. All right. Well, I am Objectively Dan, and you are watching Atheist Edge.
now I could only see in the comment section. Can you tell me if it switched to Dan? Because from my point of view, it stays on me.
It looked like it stayed on you, but if you want
do
other
it again.
takes of it,
Do it again.
I got you. I'm doing it
like
again
this, and
here.
I can zoom in on you.
What is this? How many takes is it going to take here? You're going to start paying me? We got lunch covered too. What's up with this? Do I get PTO?
I guess I could swing a first round on me at the after party, November 19th.
Okay,
I'll be there.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so I'll do it now, I guess. I'm Objectively Dan, and you are watching The Atheist Edge.
Awesome. Oh yeah, they said it did stay on me. Well, gosh damn it, I'll learn this StreamYards eventually one day.
I also said The Atheist Edge. I'm pretty
That's
sure it's
fine.
just Atheist Edge.
Say it again
though.
then if you want.
No, I'm good.
Okay. It is The Atheist Experience, and people, they're I didn't even think when I came up with the channel title. It's real close to Atheist Experience. It's AE, but luckily you guys they abbreviated AXP, so AE and AXP. It is a difference. I think that is it. Some housekeeping. So we just wrapped up our series comparing the Book of Jonah to Jason and the Argonauts, the old Greek tales. I did a poll, and you guys overwhelmingly want me to go with my next project, which is, hey, how many people are watching? Okay, only 8. That's good. And however many, this won't get 300 views. So So I'm kind of keeping it on the down low because I don't want Jonathan Shelley to know who I am. And at this point, I'm almost certain he does not. But I'm going, NIFB, Steadfast Church is right up the street for me. And I need to take advantage of this opportunity. I've been meaning to do it. I listed out 2 or 3 things like for an upcoming project, and that one overwhelmingly won. So I'm going to do the secret camera, the secret recording. I'm going to walk in as if I'm just checking out the church and maybe potential congregant. And I'm going to even see if I can get a one-on-one interview with him. I'm going to pose as a believer. I'm not going to tell him who I'm with. I don't know if that's kind of disingenuous, but I want to get him in his most general state and like a little expose kind of deal. So we're going to work on that.
Well, good luck with that.
Yeah.
Hope I don't see you in the news.
Yeah, and they carry firearms.
Mm-hmm.
They walk around. I mean, they're preaching. I see him they don't have a firearm when they're preaching, but he's got a big old hunting knife on his belt. So yeah,
that's fun.
And my local atheist group, Metroplex Atheist, of which Courtney and I, she's still a board member. They periodically on Sundays go down there and protest it, and people will come out of the church with pistols on their belt to try to intimidate them. It's crazy. All right, guys, let's see if there's any other hanging chads in the comment section. Nope. Okay, that wraps it up. Thank you so much, Dan, for coming on, and I will see you in November.
Thanks for having me. Looking forward to seeing you again. Have a good one.
You too.